Joan Johnson, Library Director for Milwaukee Public Library. We are very pleased to be participating this year in the celebration of Bronzeville Week. In reflecting on the history of Bronzeville, I really want to share how the library is all about developing and building up community as part of that celebration. And I have some exciting news to share with all of you. But before I get to that, I would like to talk about how when we reflect on what Bronzeville was and how it has evolved over the years, it had its heyday back in the 40s and 50s and 60s. And then, unfortunately, there were many development decisions that were made that tore the community apart instead of building the community up.
The origin of the word Bronzeville comes from the fact that these were neighborhoods that were primarily in urban areas in North America. So if you think of Chicago, Detroit, New York had their own version of Bronzeville, which we call Harlem. Washington, D.C., you name all the major urban cities in the Jim Crow area, pre-Jim Crow, Jim Crow, post-Jim Crow area. They were called Bronzeville because, of course, the inhabitants were people of color, whether they were Latinos or African Americans. And so the word bronze comes from our skin tone.
What really started with Bronzeville, it was called Little Africa. That was the original name, the Little Africa, where we had develop our own barbershop, beauty shops, and all of those things. And it was progressive there, and the more we was building a family, coming together and everything, and having our own, they came in, and of course, gentrification began, moving us around, and everything. And so
now Bronzeville in the early 1900s was the place where so many African Americans who migrated to the city of Milwaukee, found kind of family, and were able to be successful in business, and where they came to unwind and be entertained. We primarily know Bronzeville historically for being a place of, music, not just for local artists, but as national recording artists, jazz artists, things of that nature came through the city of Milwaukee. They performed at different venues that were within Bronzeville.
I've been in the movement all my life, so ever since the beginning. They're coming from Mississippi, born in a tin roof shack, all 9 of us, no shoes, no bathroom. And so after my dad died, my aunt convinced my mom to come to Milwaukee for a better life.
Well, I come from a family of 6. I have 5 brothers, and I was the only female. And then my mom and dad. And my parents were a hardworking couple that wanted the best for their children. They had experience picking cotton and being a part of a sharecropping generation. They knew that opportunities in the South were limited at that time, and they wanted to advance themselves, and picking cotton for $2 and $3 a day was not the kind of financial benefit that could sustain a family.
I was born and raised in Arkansas, of course, and I wanted a better life for myself and for my family. and I thought that Milwaukee would be the place for that. So I made my way into Milwaukee and found it to be just kind of what I was looking for.
But you know, my family, like many of the African American families here in the city of Milwaukee, migrated from the South up here to Milwaukee for the jobs that were here. And a few of my relatives turned into entrepreneurs. I have a great uncle, Theodore T.W. Cox, who had a law office. His law practice was right in the center of Bronzeville.
And we ended up living in a boarding house that was rented out to only black females to Singer Drugstore. Old man Singer, he had the drugstore on the corner of 8th and North Avenue. And so we were in between, we finally had a bathroom. So everybody had to use the bathroom down the hall. It was 2 rooms, you know, we had commodity cheese, spam, all sorts. Anyway, my mom, because she only had a 3rd grade education, and then so house cleaning was what she did, you know, for little or nothing, and they paid mostly my mom and them with the money, I mean with the commodity cheese spam and all sorts, instead of paying them money, that most of the time that's what they were being paid for. I think it was $1.60, I want to say an hour or a day. I'm just not sure at this moment, but yeah.
My father, along with his brother and several relatives, were able to secure a job with Milwaukee Road. Milwaukee Road hired black men during that period of time in the late 30s and the early 40s. My mom was an educator. She was a teacher. She taught in Mississippi. But her license was not accepted here in the city of Milwaukee. So she was not able to continue her career as a teacher. Instead, she became a domestic worker. When I say domestic worker, she accepted jobs cleaning the homes of rich white people in the suburb.
The real Bronzeville, well, that was on 7th and 8th Street. Oh, actually 7th, 8th, and 9th Street, and we had Lavin Park, swimming. We had our own swimming pool, and there were, I want to say, the businesses was mostly on North Avenue instead of 3rd Street that they call Bronzeville now.
It was a real beautiful place, really. You could, it was almost like going downtown because there was car lots all along all of King Drive. Of course, it wasn't King Drive, of course. We had to ride in 1967 and all of that got destroyed. But it was a beautiful place to be at. It was really awesome.
Now, the importance of Bronzeville is kind of both positive and negative. It's positive, well, let me go with negative first. It's negative because we couldn't live or shop anywhere else, so we created our own communities. Think of Tulsa and the Tulsa Wall Street area. They couldn't invest anywhere else, they couldn't live anywhere else, so we had to live amongst ourselves in a segregated scenario. But what was good about it, which we don't have now, is the fact that our dollars were rotated and circled about in our communities 10, 15, 20 times.
We had fair housing, marching for trying to have some, you know, to be able to live where we wanted to live. And Brownsville, we had Brown Street, Walnut Street. We had all the area from, I think it's from Walnut to I want to say to North Avenue. I mean, I remember that we couldn't even go up to North Avenue. We stayed on Garfield for so long that my son's grandmother, Grandma Bugs, who came here in the late 1800s, and at that time they were on Summit Street and Cass Street. They weren't able to come up to what you call North Avenue. They weren't able to do none of those things, and so eventually they had their own barbershops and all that stuff, and they had their own business and stuff. That was too much like right. So then what happened is they was pushed from Cass Street to Summit Street to Walnut and Brown Street anyway. So they lived, my grandma Buzz bought a house on right behind Gilmer Schuster's. And she used to host, Billie Holiday, Dinah Washington, because like most, when the stars came, they lived with the neighbors, to the people, because that's what we did in Mississippi. If you had anybody who, we always shared, living with one another. It was okay, because that's the way we did. You didn't never have to go anywhere else. You was always welcome.
Many of the areas that were displaced by construction of the highway have not fully recovered, but I think that we're starting to see that recovery come back now, thanks to the efforts of people doing the great work around Bronzeville now. We're starting to see some infill happening. We're starting to see businesses starting to come back to the area, and the neighborhood getting that old school Bronzeville vibe coming back.
If you study the Bronzeville of old, you kind of see the different types of businesses that existed and how well they were supported by the community. And even when you look at the new Bronzeville, you get to see the same thing, the types of businesses and how they're supported by the community. I think, though, it is really important that for businesses to flourish and for them to really grow, they have to have that support of the community. It's important for them financially to exist, but it's important for the entire community, if we want to retain these businesses and keep them there, that we support them. And I think if you look at the old Bronzeville, that's something that the African American community did very well.
We really feel a strong belonging and a strong commitment to the neighborhood. We recently just moved. We moved up the street, and my cousin Ben and I, who I own the company with, we looked all over the city, but we really had a strong desire to stay in the neighborhood. The neighborhood's been very supportive of us for many, many years.
Patronize Bronzeville. We have coffee places, we have a grocery store, we have cell phone stores, we have smaller shops all throughout MLK. We don't have a whole bunch, but we do have some.
One of the things about the modern day Bronzeville that I've tried to push as we fight to revitalize it is that that people of African Americans not only run and own and patronize the businesses that exist over here, but that we own the buildings that they're in, that we help build the buildings that they're in, that the ownership is so extremely important. I don't know that in the early 1900s that many of the African Americans owned the buildings they were in. They owned the business and they patronized the business, but they didn't own. So it's important that I think that we have ownership, and slowly but surely, as you look over Bronzeville, you begin to see more and more African American ownership.
Well, the Milwaukee Times started or was established in 1981 by my late husband, Nathan Conyers. Nathan had worked for Time magazine in the 70s, and his job transferred him to Chicago, He lived for Chicago for a couple years, and then he decided that the hustle and bustle of the Chicago life was a little too much for him. So he decided to move on to Milwaukee.
We saw Harambe, and we said, you know what, if we're gonna get a I think we have $1 million loan, and if we're gonna get $1 million and spend $1 million of the bank's money, let's spend it in a black neighborhood. Let's put that investment with black people. So it's been a commitment for us, and it's been a sacrifice for us to be here in Harambe, but we're still here. And because we made such a commitment, we hope the residents make that commitment to not just our business, but all the businesses here.
Mr. Seelig approached my husband about establishing a print shop in Bronzeville in 1985. And he shared with him that there was no black print shops in the central city, and this is something that he wanted to do, and he felt that Mr. Seelig wanted to partner with an African American businessman.
So we're at what we would call a very serious precipice where, because of George Floyd, because of the pandemic, the attention to and about people of color has shifted. And so this is the time in which our Bronzeville here in Milwaukee, which the museum is so very proud to be a part of because of Dr. James Cameron, our founder, who has distinguished this museum and its origin because he was one of the only known survivors of a public lynching, and then the only person to write a book about it, and then to actually found a museum around it. I mean, we are very proud to be an anchor here in what we call Bronzeville.
The services that Milwaukee Urban League offer, along with our partners, Employ Milwaukee, the restaurants that are black owned, like Mi Casa Su Casa, Pete's Market. Then you have the Skybox, which is right around the corner from us. The barbershops, G's Clippers, and the museum, of course, the Black Holocaust Museum. So all of those businesses and services that surround the Milwaukee Urban League that are black owned and operated and are thriving and moving forward and are willing to come together to show a stronger us in the community to help move the community forward. So all of these things I would say inspire me because the community as a whole, we need everyone. It's not an I, it's a we. So
if we had more coffee shops, more, just services and different businesses for people to shop in Harambe, then we definitely could increase the tax base. It's a great investment, investing in your own community. Even if you only spend like $20 at Pete's Market, that's $20 that comes back to Harambe.
Bronzeville is important because we can be and should be, again, an epicenter for social change, for economic development, cultural institutions, and community connectedness. And so typically when you, and we've heard this before, when you have a Martin Luther King Boulevard or Drive or Avenue, people always said, Dr. King was about peace, but it's a whole lot of violence going on over there. We need to change that narrative. And so resurrecting or continuing to develop Bronzeville is not only important for people of color here in Milwaukee, it's actually important for Milwaukee. Because now, coming off the heels of our Bucks as national champions, the growth and the economic development with the Fiserv Arena, which literally is in walking distance from where we are standing right now, is going to move economically and demographically north, which is where we are. So the development, and there are several organizations that have decided to plant their flag here, Manpower, Bader, American Family Insurance. They are now the Greater Milwaukee Foundation, the medical college, which will be right across the street. They've decided, they are determined to say that this is a community that needs to thrive. And so for all of us, primarily people of color, but for all Milwaukeeans, Bronzeville is essential for the city's growth, not just the community's growth, but the city's growth.
Being at the Milwaukee Urban League, our mission here and our vision is that we operate through education, economic vibrancy, and employment. So what I would like to see is more of our community coming together to receive the services that the Milwaukee Urban League offers. Because the more education you provide to our community, the more services they can take advantage of. Then they can take advantage of getting a job, obtaining good paying wage jobs, jobs that are not necessarily on the bus line, but in the outlying areas, because the Milwaukee Urban League provides transportation services. It's called Last Mile. And that means that we provide transportation for up to 90 days to and from work through those outlying areas that either have no transportation or little transportation. So we provide that service from the Milwaukee Urban League to work. Our TMJ program, take advantage of the immediate paid training. It's a good paid training because it allows individuals to learn different skills. If you want to learn more about auto mechanic, we can place you in a training or a work site, an employer that will train you on the frontline entry-level position of being, what does it take to be an auto mechanic? So that's what I would like to see. More of our community coming together, taking advantage of the programs and services to make us a better us.
If we aren't here, there's a lack of diversity and lack of offering. We actually bring diversity with our culture, with the food we offer, with the music we offer. We actually are part of America. We actually make America better, and America isn't what it is without us. So you need us, and we need you. And we all need to be able to live together, work together, spend together.
I think that we can increase development in the Bronzeville area by continuing to provide funds through the anti-displacement fund that's made available right now. I think more institutions need to invest in that, especially institutions that are moving into this neighborhood. But I also think that we need to make sure that the people living in this neighborhood are able to compensate for the increase in the price of living that's going to come. So that means either, helping them get more and higher paying jobs, or giving them equity in these properties so that they actually have some ownership of it and that they're not just being drained from it, but they're actually benefiting.
We are really excited to announce that we have an architect that we are going to be working with on this project to design what is going to be an amazing new library serving this community. We are working with architects Moody Nolan, based out of Chicago. It is an African-American owned architectural firm. The firm is an award-winning firm, and they have experience building libraries that are also award-winning libraries. We are going to have a very robust community engagement process, and we want everyone in the King Branch service area to join us in visioning what this new library can and should be for the benefit of the community and to help this community move forward, especially in the wake of what has been happening this last year and a half in the wake of the pandemic.
All of the construction here at our new facility is brand new. We still have dozens of artifacts from Dr. Cameron and from others of the old museum that are in storage. So we're going to rotate them throughout this museum on a quarterly or yearly basis. But we also are in conversations with several other institutions and developing an MOU for partnerships with, for example, the Wisconsin Black Historical Society, with GMF and the Medical College, with MATC. So we already have some plans in the works where we would have satellite sites at all of these facilities. And there's also some talk about us creating some spaces here across the street and down the street but that's down the road. Our major mission now is to open this facility in early 2022.
I'd like to give a shout out to very important community leaders at the Bader Foundation, at the King Street Bid, at the American Black Holocaust Museum, Alderwoman Coggs, and the amazing work she's been doing in this community. All of them will be helping us at reaching as many of you in the community as possible to participate with us in this design process. We are very excited to be working with you. And this whole year, the rest of this year and part of 2022 will be community engagement work. And then in early 2022, we will begin construction on the new building. It will be in this location where we are standing right now, where the branch currently stands. So this building will be demolished. There are sometimes many things unexpected that happen with these building projects. We will likely open our new branch and present it to you, the community, before the end of 2023.
I have a side project I'm doing with a friend / partner of mine that I met through the Acre Development Program here in Milwaukee. And we are going to, fingers crossed, build a mixed-use development here in the district where we bring more commercial spaces and more residential. So hopefully that will, we get the financing and can get going by next year, but I definitely want to see more commercial development.
So MKE Black's mission is to promote Black culture and Black-owned businesses in the city of Milwaukee. And so we do everything that we can, from promotion to connecting to resources, to try to make sure that the Black-owned businesses in this community are able to thrive and be successful. And through that, we can reestablish the old Bronzeville that used to be, because it was all Black-owned, well, mostly Black-owned businesses. And we want those businesses to, be back in where they used to be and to be as successful as they used to be.
I think lessons we can learn from Bronzeville is that community, strong leadership, and entrepreneurship are really great pillar stones to a strong community.
Well, I think we all can learn about being resilient and the unity that we need to incorporate here in our community. Let's just talk about the resilient aspect first. The resilient aspect is that, we know that our community has gone through a lot of things, a lot of hard hits. But the one thing about our community is that we never give up. We keep striving, we keep pushing, and we keep working together to make sure that we as a community someday will see a major impact and change in our community.
I just want to say everyone definitely give Bronzeville a chance. I really love that this community has so many creative businesses in it. It's not every community needs the bars and the restaurants, but it's also just has the Bronzeville Collective. We've got the bookstore coming in. We've got just a lot of different creative ventures, and that's something I really love about it. So check it out.
I think now, as we look at Bronzeville, it's important not only for the African American community to support the businesses over here, but for the entire community. Although Bronzeville has an African American focus, I think the culture that exists here is one that could be both studied and enjoyed by communities, across communities and various cultures. So, jazz has no particular ethnicity that it appeals to. Great music is great music. Great food is great food. And that's just a fact. So I always encourage people to come see Bronzeville, experience Bronzeville. And part of the reason that we created Bronzeville Week was to give people an opportunity to be exposed, to see, what we see over here in Bronzeville, but also to showcase, great things that already exist and to show what's possible if people just spent a little more time and energy focusing on the good. Because too often in this city and beyond, we always think about the negative of what's going on in society and the community. So Bronzeville Week is 8 days of us trying to look at, the good. But beyond Bronzeville Week, that whole area is one that, I'm extremely proud of and that we continue to build. I always say I don't take credit for what Bronzeville was before I got here, but while I'm here, I'm going to fight to make it a Bronzeville that we all can be proud of for generations to come.